opposite the British Parliament and by the Mahatma Gandhi statue here, you can see in the Parliament Square. I'm joined by Lance Forman, the former member of European Parliament who just took part in the vigil that was organized in the Parliament Square, calling for the hostages to be released, and these are Israelis and the supporters of Israeli people here in London. Thank you for your time, Mr. Forman. Please tell me more about this vigil and the call for the hostages to return.
Well, Lavina, this is, it's a peaceful vigil to remind people that there are still 240 men, women, children, toddlers, 35 toddlers still held hostage by Hamas, and they need to be released. People are calling for a ceasefire. If you want a ceasefire, you've got to start by releasing the hostages. You've got to release the hostages, disarm, then we can talk about a ceasefire. But these hostages are still held in captivity. There are families crying for them to be returned. And we want people to remember that and not forget that that is the absolute number one priority here.
A lot of people would say, because the way the conflict is being taken forward, there are many people who are being injured and refugee camps are being bombed. Is that right to do? How would you respond?
Well, you were at the vigil today, and one of the speakers said we mustn't forget the innocent children that are being killed in Gaza too. We care about every innocent civilian life that is lost. But the fact of the matter is, this is down to Hamas. Hamas are deliberately holding these people as human shields to protect themselves. They are a barbaric group of terrorists, and this is their tactic. They want people to be killed so that, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people come out on the street to call for a ceasefire to help them. It's part of their strategy. The quickest way to stop any deaths is for people to call for hostages to be released, for Hamas to lay down their arms, and then we can have a ceasefire. That is the quickest way to end civilian deaths on all sides.
I want to go a step back and ask you to a lot of people who say that it was in 1948 that it was the Palestinian land that was taken and given to these people, and continuously this day of 7th of October, maybe not the way that it came about, but it was waiting to happen because of what has been happening for decades with Palestine.
Well, it's difficult to give a history lesson in a few short messages. This goes back thousands of years, actually. But after World War II, there were millions of people who were transferred. In India and Pakistan, 1 million people changed over borders. And in Israel today, you have Israeli Arabs living in peace, having the best standard of living of any Arabs across the entire Middle East. They can be High Court judges, they can be cabinet ministers, and indeed some of them are. They are the same people as the Palestinians that are fighting Israel today. The only difference, they're exactly the same people, the same families. The only difference is that the Israeli Arabs are people that were happy to live in Israel. The ones that aren't are the ones that have never wanted peace. They just never wanted Israel to exist. We need to find a solution to that problem.
Okay. Going forward now, what is the plan? Because on the 11th of November, the Armistice Day, the Remembrance Day, Remembrance Sunday, you are having a huge protest everywhere, and that will be, I guess, 5th. 4th happened just on the Saturday. So what is it that all of you are planning to do next?
Well, it's not what we're planning to do. It's really what the government are planning to do, the police are planning to do to be able to contain it. The fact of the matter is, you had Suella Braverman talking about these being hate marches, and you have to ask yourself a really important question. 500,000 people, Muslims primarily, were killed during the Syrian civil war. Were there protests? No. 400,000 people have been killed in recent years, in the last 5, 6, 7 years in Yemen. Were there protests on the streets? No. But the minute Jewish people in Israel are defending themselves against attacks, suddenly you see thousands of people out in the streets. To any sensible person, with a little bit of common sense, it's so obvious to us that this is a spread of anti-Semitism. This is not about protecting Palestinian people. If Palestinian people wanted peace, we would have peace. So that is the worry, and the worry for the Jewish community in London is that the police can't cope. I saw something on social media yesterday where a policeman said, "What do you want us to do? There's thousands of them and a few of us." And our real fear is that the police cannot cope with these protests. Some of these protests become violent. And there is a question as to whether they should be allowed. The police can't actually, they can't manage them, they can't cope with them. Should the army come in? Should they be allowed to happen? These are not questions for me. These are questions that the government needs to ask itself.
Yes, indeed. Let us come slightly this side. Just come slightly this side because I want this to be. Sorry. Okay. Very quickly now, there is a lot of division amongst the politicians as well. It's not only on the roads and amongst the people. Sadiq Khan has called for ceasefire, Keir Starmer has not. And while Rishi Sunak stands squarely, there are voices within the west corridors of Westminster where there are on other side, and so there are divisions in the Westminster as well. How would you address that?
Well, I think Parliament has been robustly in support of Israel's action. They recognise Israel's it's a duty to defend its own country. And, we're not talking about a fight against Palestinians, you're talking about a fight against a terrorist organisation. Hamas are ISIS. No country can live with that on its border. It's not like they're another country, a distance away. They're literally, they're neighbours, they're miles away from where civilians are living. No country can stand for that anymore. And Hamas have said themselves, it was on TV just 2 or 3 days ago, they have said that they will do this again and again on October the 10th, the 7th, the 10th, the millionth. They're going to keep doing it until not only Israel is wiped out, but every Jew on the planet has been annihilated. Jewish people can't stand for this anymore. And we have to do what we have to do.
Yeah. What would be your last thought and message on this day?
My last thought and message is that this is really a fight about good over evil. It doesn't take a genius to work that out. Innocent people have been slaughtered. Jewish people for thousands of years have been persecuted. All they want to do is be able to live in peace in a homeland where they can be protected. They want nothing more than peace. We are a peaceful people. That is all we want. And it is sad that anti-Semitism that's been around through the ages is rearing its ugly head. I hope that what's happened just now is a wake-up call and good people, and I believe that most people in Britain actually do not approve of what they're seeing on our streets. I just hope that good people can wake up and just say, like we do, never again, enough is enough.
Just my very last question, I'm really sorry, I have to ask, how would you respond to people who say that, yes, what happened on the 7th of October was not right, but what is happening now is not right too?
I agree. There should not be any civilian deaths. It's all down to Hamas. Don't blame Israel for this. You need to blame Hamas. Hamas are stopping their own people going south. It is a deliberate ploy on their part to hold civilians as human shields. This is their tactic. They want Israel to be forced to kill innocent civilians to be able to get their hostages back. It's part of their strategy. You have to be stupid not to be able to see that. I think most people in Britain can see that. There's nothing more to say. It's part of the Hamas terrorist strategy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lance Forman, who was the former member of European Parliament here, who joined the vigil of people of Israeli origin living in Britain, and also their supporters calling for the hostages to be released, just by where I'm standing by the Gandhi statue in Parliament Square. And he says enough is enough. Once the hostages are released, the hostages should be released and the arms should be laid down and talks should begin. But that's not what we see at the moment happening. As the war intensifies in the area, in the region, there are divisions here amongst people and politicians as well. Lavina Tandon for India Today from Parliament Square, London.